The field lesions or the abnormality for the respiratory system. Okay, so let's do the review. What does mean by the abnormality in the respiratory system? It means any abnormality, the damage or the lesion in the conducting portion. So what about the conducting portion? It means nasal cavity, conducting portion, any abnormality in the nasal cavity. So what about the abnormality in the nasal cavity? It means rhinitis, inflammation, and also the neoplasia and the nasal polyp. These are the common lesions for the nasal cavity. What we have? Larynx. Commonly we have what? Necrotic laryngitis, necrobacillosis, necrotic laryngitis. What else? Trachea. Most commonly what we have? Tracheitis, fibrinous tracheitis. Okay, let's go to the bronchi. Primary, secondary, and tertiary, which is called by what? Bronchitis. Okay. What we have also? Terminal bronchial. Be careful. From nasal cavity till terminal bronchial is what? Conducting portion. In bronchi, mostly what we have? Bronchitis, bronchiectasis. Bronchitis, bronchiectasis. Let's talk about the respiratory portion. What we have? Also, respiratory bronchial. So, commonly also what we have? Bronchiectasis, over distension of the bronchi, and also bronchiolitis. Bronchiolitis, it means the inflammation of the bronchi. But inside the alveoli and alveolar duct and sac, what we have? Pneumonia. Unbroken. Different types of the pneumonia. The problem in the inflation, atelectasis and emphysema. So all the section is about this abnormality. So let's check what we have. First of all, it is important to recognize in the section. For example, the section is taking which part? From the conducting portion or from the respiratory portion? Okay. These are what? The blood vessel. So we have what? We have a blood vessel. Let's to see this blood vessel is found in which part? Okay. This is in the low power. Now, this is a lumen, what we have. This is a lining epithelium, and this is called by the lamina propria or subendothelial. Lamina propria. Take a look for the submucosa, what we have. We have a large amount of the blood vessel. Okay, let's to see in the high power. Okay. This section is taken from the which organ? Does it is taken from the nasal cavity, or it is taken from the bronchi or bronchial? Do you need more high power? Let's do it. Yes. Okay. It's contained the lumen, the nasal, it's contained the blood vessel, and also what we have as stroma. Let's to see the lining epithelium. The lining epithelium is what? Now this is about the lining epithelium. This is a classic camera, they have a low resolution. Now, what about the lining epithelium? From here till here is what? Pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium. So which part in the conducting or respiratory portion is a pseudo-stratified? Maybe it's what? Maybe the trachea, maybe the larynx, maybe the nasal cavity. But I heard a good answer because it contains a large amount of the blood vessels. So this section is what is taken from the nasal cavity. This is a good answer because it is contained the large. Take a look. It's contained the large amount of the nasal cavity. Therefore, is what the section is taken from the nasal cavity. Thus, it is a normal nasal cavity? Of course, no. Let's to see what we have. This is a lumen, and here it is a lining epithelium, the lamina propria, and the submucosa. What happened? There is a proliferation of the lamina propria. The lamina propria usually composed of what? The collagen fiber, so it is a stroma. There is a hyperplastic stroma. There is a proliferation of the lamina propria, the collagen fiber. Actually, this is a mass which are protruded toward. Protruded toward the lumen of the nasal cavity. There is a proliferation of the stroma, the fleshy stroma, toward the lumen. Now, what about all of these basophilic coloration? Yes, it's in the high power. Before of that, there's what? There is a severe congestion of the blood vessel. Take a look for the blood vessel. Normally, the blood vessel does not congest it like this, engorged with the blood. But here what we have, there is an engorgement severely, markedly for all the blood vessels. What about all of these reddish coloration? These are the free RBC. There is a free RBC which are distributed throughout the lining epithelium, the lamina propria, even in the submucosa. But what about all of these basophilic coloration? Let's to see in the high power. Okay. Now this is what? It is a congested blood vessel. Congested blood vessel. But what about here? How many types of the basophilic structure we have? There is a basophilic structure. It is look like a rod, cocci. Take a look. These are the cocci, rod. But also we have a irregular dark basophilic cell. Now what about this basophilic? And what about this one? Especially in the lining epithelium. Take. If you scan it throughout the section, we have the same structure. Take a look for this hemorrhage. Large hemorrhage. What we have? The rod-shaped structure. Rod-shaped structure. Now, do you see the bacteria in the gram stain? What about the shape for the streptococcus? Cocci. Yes. These are the bacteria. These cocci, rod-shaped, they are the bacterial colony. So what we have? There are the bacterial colony which is found on the fleshy mass, on the proliferated area. These are the bacteria. But what about these cells? They have a neutrophil, dark, irregular basophilic cell. So it is a rod to the cocci. It is a streptococcus. Now it is a bacterial colony which are distributed throughout what? The hyperplastic mass. Now what about the diagnosis for this section? If you see the section like this, when you take the nasal cavity, there is a hyperplastic fleshy mass. There, what? Reddish coloration because it contains a large amount of the blood vessel, congested of the blood vessels throughout them. And also what we have? There are the bacterial colony which is found on the surface of what? Of the mass. But actually we have one additional structure. Let's just see the high power. These are still what? The bacterial colony. And now what about here? Yes. What about this cell? They are bilobed, but contain what? Eosinophilic cytoplasm. These are what? Eosinophil. Okay. According to your opinion, what about the diagnosis for this section? If there is a fleshy mass protruded toward the lumen, the mass are composed of what? Are composed of the collagen fiber stroma, which are mixed with the hemorrhage and contain a large amount of the eosinophil and also the neutrophil. What about the diagnosis? Yes, it is a mass. Yes? Nasal polyp. This is a nasal polyp. Gosh is yan and amlut. PLN a nasal polyp. So, but actually in the nasal polyp we have two types. There is a highly eosinophilic type and ulcerated. There are two types of the nasal polyp. Ulcerated nasal polyp and also highly or eosinophilic. According to your opinion, if we return to the surface, this type is highly or ulcerated, and why? This is a surface of the mass. Take a look for the bacterial colony, and these are the hemorrhage. Now, this, should I say eosinophilic, highly nasal polyp, or should I say ulcerated nasal polyp? What is the histological feature for the ulcer? Yes? Do you see the gap? Just only there's a sloughing. Do you see the gap? No. It's contained a large amount of the eosine. So it is what? And take a look, they have a reddish coloration. This is indicator for the RBC and also eosine. So we can, should I say eosinophilic or highly nasal polyp? So the diagnosis for the one section is what? The eosinophilic or highly nasal polyp. So the nasal polyp under the microscope appear like this. Be careful. This side, even you can say infected nasal polyp. Why? Because, see what? The bacterial colony. It means not sterile. It is an infected nasal polyp. But it doesn't matter. Just only highly or eosinophilic nasal polyp. So this is a nasal polyp. Do you remember the common species in the animal which are suffer from the nasal polyp? Which species? Horse, yes. What else? Especially the pet animal, the dog and cat. Usually suffer from what? From the nasal polyp. Now, what about this broken section? So, what happened? Now, please, make a focus on the section. This section is taken from the which part of the respiratory system? Thus, it is taken from the lung, the bronchi, the trachea. It's taken from the which part? طبعا الفم مايكروسكوب وكاميرا لو سيعطوا واضح عليه. But still, I think it's good. Now, what about this section? It's taken from which organ? Let's see the high power. Okay. Now, still, can you recognize it or not? What about the organ? This section is taken from the lung. Why? Because it's containing the bronchi, and also what we have is the alveoli and the bronchial lumen. Okay. Let's start from the bronchi. Thus, this size and arrangement of the bronchi is normal or not? Do you remember the bronchi? Usually the bronchi, they have an oval shape. But in the terminal bronchial, what we have? There is a faulty appearance in the lining epithelium. But usually they have what? They have a round or oval shape. What about this bronchi? What happened? There's what? There is a irregular dilation of the bronchi. The bronchi is distended, expanded, or dilated. Actually, when you look for the lining epithelium, they have an irregular outline. Okay. When the bronchi distended irregularly, in the pathology, this is called by what? Expansion. Yes, this is a bronchiectasis. If you see the bronchi over distended, it is called by what? By the bronchiectasis. Here what we have, there is a sloughing of the lining epithelium. But actually we have a most common important lesion. Let's to see. Now, what about here? There is an accumulation or deposition of what? Blackish coloration patch. Or there is a patchy deposition for what? For blackish coloration. In the lung parenchyma, when you have a deposition of the blackish coloration patch or particle or granule, it's called by what? Anthracosis. So in this section, how many lesions we have? Expansion of the bronchi, bronchiectasis, accumulation, deposition, the presence of the carbon particles throughout the lung parenchyma, which is called by what? By the anthracosis. But still we have important lesions. Let's to see. Oh. Now, here also what we have, there is a large amount of what? Of the blackish coloration. Large amount of what? The blackish coloration. Now, what happened to here? Please take a look. This is a normal alveoli. Take a look for the size of the alveolar lumen. If you compare this to that one, if you compare this alveolar sac to that, what happened? What about here? What happened to the alveoli? These are also the alveoli. This is also the bronchiectasis, okay? But what happened to the alveoli? These are the whole of the alveoli. These are the whole of the alveoli. Take a look. The alveoli are arranged, look like a line, look like a slit, there is an arrangement of the alveoli, look like a slit. There is no expansion inside the alveolar lumen. Each of the slit or the line, they are arranged parallel to each other. Now, when you found compressed, collapsed line, they have a slit-like appearance. This is called by what? It's called by what? Atelectasis. So how many lesions in this section we have? The bronchiectasis, over distension of the bronchi, deposition of the carbon particle, which is called by the anthracosis. Even take a look for this bronchi. There is an irregular over expansion. And also what we have? There is a slit-like arrangement. Slit-like arrangement. So this section is what is called by that امتحان بين lesion و lesion diagnosis و diagnosis بینوسی. چی معنی؟ Bronchiectasis, anthracosis, and also what we have? Atelectasis. مخاوش. Atelectasis. Oh. So what about the next section? What we have? Okay. This is not the lesion, it is an artifact. Please make a focus here. What happened to the lung parenchyma? Okay. The section, take a look for here. طبعا هالواحد ركبت شكل توخي كينو يا كاو كينو. وابزان باشترا. Okay. So now, what about the section? It's taken from which organ? The lung, because we have an alveoli. Adam, would you please describe for me what happened to the alveolar hole and what happened to the alveolar lumen? What happened?
Widening of the alveoli.
Yes. So what we have? There is an over expansion. Take a look. This is a single alveoli. What happened? There is no any hole. Yes, Wafa? Excellent. There is a distraction of the alveolar septa. اگر ما بیفتن یعنی یا بینی هر alveoli بو alveoli كتير شيء معناه هو alveolar septa. Do you see here alveolar septa or alveolar hole? No. There is an over expansion of the alveolar sac. Why? Because there is a distraction. Please take a look. There is a condition which is called by overinflation due to the rising of the mountain. حتما هدیتان چون بوسر شخ کاچی بوسر شخ هری کاخم چی او چکلیه oxygen saturation که زور زوره ابد هوی چی overinflation of the lung. But this condition is pathological. That condition is physiological. Now, how can you make a differentiation between the physiological overinflation and pathological? In pathological, what we have? When there is a distraction of the alveolar septa, at the end of each alveolar septa, there is a formation of the hyperplastic node. Hypergrade, beaucoup grade you say, but it is what? It is a part of the elastin fiber and the reticulin fiber, which is remain in the alveolar hole or alveolar septa. If you see, take a look. If you see this node is called by what? By the emphysema and it is a pathological overinflation. Also, what we have? The blackish coloration of the what? The carbon particle. Carbon particle. Again, bir tane. Which one emphysema? COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Leberewa her toxic material elbet, her bacterial viral elbet, zor ve ahsan infection elbet. Therefore, also, usually emphysema will be associated with what? Inhalation of the toxic material. Like what? The carbon. So what about the diagnosis for this section? Emphysema and sarcosis. Emphysema and so these are the salad. Let's go to the main food. First of all, let's recognize the section. The section is taken from which organ? طبعا ام كاميرا رجلي تلفزيوني رشو سبيه مور به هر كال درجه صوز به هر كال درجه هر سبي درجه بلام ايه كشرنگ بانیه لیره لیش نکن گرنگه باشه. Let's to scan the section. ولا بدز من نیه کالی تی عبدالرحمن دعایی همون تنورم بو مختبر یک چکی سلاید کینا باشه. What about the organ? It's taken from the lung. What happened? Inside the lung parenchyma. Oh. What we have? These are the alveolar hole, these are the alveolar lumen, and this is a bronchi. This is also what we have. This is a bronchial lumen, and these are the alveoli. These are the alveolar lumen. Let's to see the high power also. Okay. Let's see the focus. Now, in the high power also what we have. This is the alveolar lumen, and these are the alveolar hole. Now, what happened to the alveoli? What about this cell? Now, these are the alveolar hole. What happened to the alveolar hole? There is an engorgement of the alveolar capillary. Take a look for the capillary. These are the alveolar capillary which are engorged with what? With a blood. Now, these are the alveolar hole. What about this cell? This cell is a neutrophil and a macrophage, which are, it means it is an exudate. It is an exudate, especially what we have, especially we have a neutrophil, which are found inside the alveolar lumen. Okay. So these are the neutrophil, which are found inside the alveolar lumen. Okay. There is an exudate, especially the neutrophil. There is an engorgement of the alveolar capillary, which are found inside the alveolar lumen. Let's to check the bronchi and the bronchiole. Thus, in the bronchi and the bronchiole, we have, yes. What about these? These are congested alveolar capillary, but these are the free RBC, hemorrhage, which are distributed throughout what? The lung parenchyma. Now, Let's to check one of the bronchi. Yes, this is a bronchi. Yes. Now, this section is taken from the bronchi. What's happened to the bronchi? Take a look for the bronchial lumen. First of all, there's a sloughing of the lining epithelium. شو نزعلم sloughing? Because the lumen of the bronchi should be empty. But here, there is an exudate and what? Necrotic debris. There is an exudate and the necrotic debris. So there are sloughing of the lining epithelium, the presence of the necrotic debris. Now, according to the necrotic or exudate, we classify the pneumonia into what? Suppurative pneumonia, interstitial pneumonia, and fibrinous pneumonia. There is an exudate inside the alveolar lumen and inside what? The bronchial lumen. There are the three RBC. The common type of the exudate is what? Neutrophil. شلون زعلم neutrophil؟ سري لوبا كان يمكن تلو كان. كم لوبا؟ سي لوبا. ليرش دو لوبا. شلون رنجكي؟ It is irregular, dark basophilic. So بعضيات سلايدك سكان كين. بعدين شيء تلمان هي. أوه. Yes. These are the inside alveolar lumen. Silicon. Engorgement with the exudate. Engorgement with the exudate. Now, what about the diagnosis? If you find large amount of the neutrophil inside the alveolar lumen, inside the bronchi. Excellent. This is called by what? It is a suppurative bronchopneumonia. It is a suppurative bronchopneumonia. Or suppurative bronchopneumonia is called by what? By the lobular pneumonia. Suppurative or sometimes you can say permanent. تلي بكن تاسي که شدن هی چونین اسنا باش سری امپاورش بکن take a look اگر تی نگی پرسیار که و کتر جمله بالا بالتن نبید باش these are the alveolar hole, the lumen, and these are the bronchi. Take a look. Here there is an accumulation of the pus in the alveolar lumen and also the bronchi. لبعتی جاری و بزن 20 جار دوباره من کردم. Okay. What about this one? Let's to scan the section. The section is taken from what? From the bronchi, bronchiole, from the lung. So what we have? These are the alveoli. And these are what? Also the alveoli. These are what? The bronchi. Because this is a lining epithelium of the bronchi. What happened inside the bronchi, the alveoli, and the hole? This is a bronchial lumen. Basha. This is a bronchial lumen. And these are the alveoli. Take a look for the lumen of the alveoli. There is a small part. There are the cross section. Actually, these are the different larval stage for the nematode, langorum. The bronchial lumen and the alveolar lumen is contained the different stage. Different stage for what? For the nematode or the langorum. What about the alveolar septa? Seri lumna kapkan, ay lumna kabich galeni matoj. Hiç exudate kitritya? No. Exudate kan lequin. The exudate or the inflammatory reaction is found in the alveolar septa, interstitial septa. Seri lining epithelium bronchi, but can we slough? There are completely sloughing of the lining epithelium. The presence of what? The larval stage. So let's just in the high power. Or if you move the section, you may find the same lesion. In the lumen of the bronchi, in the lumen of the alveoli, you may see the different larval stage. Please take a look for this one. This is a bronchi. Surrounding the bronchi, what we have? There is a deposition of the large amount of the collagen fiber. This is called by peribronchial fibrosis. Peribronchial fibrosis. Let's do in the high power. Maybe it's not good for you. Now, this is the alveolar hole, and these are the alveolar hole. These are the alveolar septa. Here, mostly, the exudate will be found at the alveolar septa. What we have, there are the plasma cell, there is a eosinophil. Why? Because we have a parasitic infestation. This is a eosinophil. Also, we have what? The lymphocyte. يعني چی? There is a chronic inflammatory cell plus eosinophil. Why? Because there is a parasitic infestation. But still we have a lesion. This is not the general pathology. It is a systemic pathology. Yes. This is a bronchi. What we have? Also peribronchi. There is what? There is an infiltration of the large amount of what? The chronic inflammatory cell. Plus what? Plus the eosinophil. همو اورگانیک که پیوست سود به و لجر ام مایکروسکوپ عادی و برتقالی در کیوانه همو چی؟ These are the eosinophil. قاعدة كم lesion من هي section تلا بكان. How many lesion we have? There's one, the different larval stage which are found inside the alveolar lumen and the bronchial lumen. Do better if you know. Larval stage in the alveolar lumen, the bronchial lumen. There is a fibrosis, this pinkish coloration, surrounding the bronchi. There is a peribronchial infiltration of the chronic inflammatory cell. There is a exudation, inflammatory reaction in interstitial alveolar septa, not inside the alveolar lumen. In this section here, we have a lesion diagnosis and disease diagnosis. Now, what about the lesion diagnosis? Interstitial pneumonia. Because lumina can exudate تانية تنها لشوينها تنها interstitial. This is a lesion diagnosis. Interstitial pneumonia. What about the disease diagnosis? Yes?
Verminous pneumonia.
It's called by the verminous pneumonia or parasitic pneumonia. So, interstitial pneumonia. This is a lesion diagnosis, LD. What about DD, which is a disease diagnosis? It is a verminous or parasitic. We have a simple section. You should describe this section. Okay. Now, this section is taken from the lung. Basha. But what happened in the lung now? Scanning section كبكاملي أكم بيمبلن شيريا ولم section. So, what about this section? جماعة دواو. Comment. What about this structure? This eosinophilic material. What about this? بابزين لباوري جوري كينا ستا. Yes, أو بولا شيء بابزين عليه شيء بيجون جوري باوري بس بولا كنبي أي تريشي. Yes. Efriad, زين فرياد بولا شيء. Telebakan. What about this irregular basophilic structure in the center of the lesion? What about this homogeneous granular eosinophilic material? Homogeneous granular eosinophilic material. Listen to the man here. There is an irregular basophilic structure. which are surrounded by the granulation tissue. And sectional tumor matrix, yes? This is a granuloma. This is a nodule. Nodular catchy. In the center we have what? The calcification, dystrophic. Dark, irregular, basophilic. Irregular, basophilic. بچه دوری سوری بابلین لهمو باشتکان چی من هی granular cheesy material granular cheesy eosinophilic material which is what cases necrosis همو necrosis که بچی چوار دراوا با granulation tissue و ابی چی شیتیابه the giant cell. So this is a calcification and eosinophilic one. Now all the lung parenchyma are replaced by this granuloma. What about the diagnosis? Granulomatous pneumonia. What about the causes? TB, pseudotuberculosis, fungi, and how many granulomatous pneumonia. Last section, babzani chiman here. There am asana boyso lasari narola. So, in jaledu I am a mufaja aman here. هشتا طعام نبود ترى بكان زانت هشتا طعام نبود. Okay. بعد بچه بیلین با حق دقیقه چکل جر میکروسکوپ لانی زور جوانه. هلا بکن با کویزکا تنها سلایدی اخیر چکه براسی لیره هر بیرفاکا باوسته بینی. هفته داتو کویزکین بالام گروپ هر گروپ ان شاء الله لکات ان شاء الله هیچ تبرو نرده. بالنسبة لامتحاني ميتير مرتبة بكان حتى إصالة يانزي سي عطلني أزاني مجوتان يبغى عطلة شاوريني. بلان بوي هر آمده كاري بكن إن شاء الله أجر عطلبو خير على خير نشبعني نجم خلاص هر برشة أجر عطلة نبو أجر دار من خوتان حاضر كن إن شاء الله ينزي سي امتحاني بيتير بالنسبة تلا بكان باب